Zanab knew that waiting any longer would cost more lives. Every day, she stayed silent. Another girl could be hurt. Another voice could be buried under fear. She had already lost so much. Her school, her friends, her peace, her sense of safety. But she refused to lose the lives of others. That morning, she woke up feeling the weight of everything pressing on her chest. The sun streamed through the window, but it brought no warmth. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the floor, her mind filled with memories of Mr. Kareem's calm, gentle smile, and the fear that smile had once created. Her notebook lay beside her, small and worn, filled with words she had written in trembling hands. Dates, events, names, threats, the truth. It was more than a notebook. It was a shield. It was a weapon. It was hope. Zanab took a deep breath. She felt the nausea in her stomach, the same kind that had taken her down in assembly months ago. But this time, the nausea was different. It was fear mixed with determination. She looked around her room. The walls seemed to whisper, reminding her of every moment she had stayed silent. Every look of pity. Every judgmental whisper. Every neighbor's stare. I cannot let this happen to anyone else, she whispered to herself. Her voice was quiet, but it carried steel. She packed her small bag carefully. Inside, the notebook, a pen, and her courage. She checked every detail. She had to be ready. One wrong step could destroy everything. Her parents were still in the house, but she did not look at them. Not yet. Not until the right moment. As she walked toward the school, her hands trembled slightly. The streets felt alive with whispers. Every sound made her heart jump. She remembered the humiliation she had faced, the isolation, the shame. And yet each step forward brought a strange kind of strength. The fear was still there, but it was no longer controlling her. When she reached the school gates, the tall iron bars seemed impossibly high. The same gates she had walked out of months ago, shamed and humiliated, were now a barrier between fear and justice. She closed her eyes for a moment. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest. 1,000 what-ifs ran through her mind. What if they laughed at me? What if they protect him? What if I fail? But then she remembered the girls who had whispered to her, the girls who had suffered quietly, the ones whose voices had not yet been heard. She remembered her cousin's frightened eyes and the stories that were too painful to ignore. She opened her eyes. The gates did not feel so high anymore. She felt ready. With her notebook hidden safely in her bag and her witnesses walking beside her, Zanab stepped through the school gate. Every glance from older teachers made her tense. Every whisper in the hallway felt like it was about her, but she kept her head high. She would not shrink back. They walked past the assembly ground, past the classrooms where she had learned, laughed, and suffered, and finally arrived at the teacher's office. Zanab's hands were shaking. Her heart was racing. Her stomach was tight with nerves. But she held her bag close. She had her notebook. She had proof. She had courage. She knocked softly. "Come in," said the teacher inside. Zanab entered slowly, taking care to keep her voice steady. She explained everything. She showed the notebook. Dates, names, threats, stories, pain. The teacher's face changed. Shock, anger, concern. For the first time in months, Zanab felt believed. But suddenly, a shadow appeared. Outside the door, Mr. Kareem had returned early. His eyes scanned the room, and they landed on the notebook. Anger flashed across his face. For a moment, Zanab's courage wavered. Her hands trembled. Her chest felt tight, but she held the notebook closer. She would not let him intimidate her anymore. The teacher stepped forward, blocking him. "We know what you've been doing," the teacher said firmly. "Family, It ends now. The calm smile faded from Mr. Kareem's face. He realized the secret could no longer be hidden. The tension in the room was unbearable. Zanab glanced at the other girl beside her. They were scared. They were trembling. But they were with her. And suddenly, the fear did not feel so heavy. The first step had been taken. The silence was broken, and justice was beginning to stir. Zanab felt her heart racing, but she held the notebook tightly. For months, it had been her only companion, her shield, her silent cry for justice. Now, in the teacher's office, the truth could finally breathe. The teacher, who'd been skeptical for so long, now leaned forward, scanning each page. She read the dates, the notes, the names, the threats, the encounters that had terrorized the girls for years. Every word weighed heavily on her heart. This is serious, she murmured, shaking her head. I can't believe the school ignored all of this. Zanab felt a small spark of hope ignite inside her. Finally, someone believed her. Finally, the silence was beginning to break. Then, the moment came. Mr. Kareem's shadow fell across the doorway. His face, once calm and confident, now twisted in anger and confusion. What is this? He demanded. His eyes scanned the notebook, landing on the names written in neat, trembling letters. You have no idea what you're doing, he hissed, his voice low and dangerous. Zanab did not flinch. She met his gaze, her own eyes steady, burning with a fire he could not touch. I know exactly what I'm doing, she said softly but firmly. This ends now. All the girls you hurt, the ones you threatened. It ends. Today, the teacher stepped in, standing directly between them. No more lies. No more secrets. The truth is here, and we will act. For a moment, the room was silent. The tension hung thick, heavy, like a storm ready to burst. Zanab's hands trembled, but she refused to let go of the notebook. This was her weapon, her proof, her voice. Then, Mr. Kareem lunged forward slightly, anger flashing in his eyes. But the teacher blocked him without hesitation. You will answer for your actions. The school can no longer protect you. Zanab's stomach twisted with nerves, but she felt stronger than ever. The power had shifted. No longer was she the frightened girl in assembly, trembling and alone. Now she had witnesses. She had evidence. She had courage. Over the next hour, the confrontation unfolded carefully. The teacher called other staff members into the room one by one. Each time, Zanab repeated her story calmly, showing the notebook, explaining the threats, the secret meetings, the fear she and others had endured. The school staff could no longer deny what had happened. The principal's face went pale as she read through the notebook. The other teachers who had ignored the signs, who had looked the other way now, had no choice but to listen. And then came the moment of reckoning. Mr. Kareem, once respected and admired by parents and students alike, was removed from his position. His calm facade had crumbled. His reputation shattered in an instant. But Zanab's fight was far from over. She knew that removing him was only the beginning. The real challenge was ensuring no other girl would suffer in silence again. Slowly, over the next days, more girls came forward. Each one had a story, a memory, a secret they had been too afraid to share. Each testimony added weight to the truth, a mountain of proof that could not longer be ignored. The school could no longer protect the guilty. For the first time, justice began to take shape. Zanab felt a mix of relief and fear. Relief that finally the truth was seen. Fear of what would come next. Back at home, she showed her parents the notebook. Her father's hands shook as he read the words, the dates, the events. Tears ran down his face, silent and heavy. I did not know, he whispered. Your silence. It was not disobedience. It was courage. Her mother cried too, but now her tears were relief, not despair. For the first time in months, Zanab felt her parents truly understand. They had worried about shame, about family honor, about gossip. Now they saw the real battle, the one their daughter had fought alone. That night, Zanab lay awake in her bed. The darkness that had haunted her months ago felt different. It was no longer suffocating. It was quiet but strong, like a shield. The next morning, the school called a meeting. All staff, teachers, and administrators gathered. Parents were informed. The investigation began in full. Zanab returned to school, not as a student, not as a victim, but as a voice that could not be silenced. With her notebook, with her witnesses, she walked the halls. Every glance she received, every whisper she heard, no longer frightened her. Now, people listened. The power had shifted. For the first time, Zanab realized the true strength of courage. She had faced fear. She had protected others. And the world had finally begun to see it. The morning sun shone through Zanab's window, but she barely noticed. Her mind was racing, heart pounding, yet a strange calm had settled in her chest. Today was the day. The day her voice, her courage, and her notebook would change everything. She dressed carefully, choosing a simple outfit that did not draw attention. But she felt stronger than ever. For months, fear had controlled her. For months, silence had weighed her down like chains. Now, she walked freely, carrying only truth and determination. At the school, the principal's office was tense. Staff members whispered nervously as Mr. Karim was escorted in. His face, once confident and calm, now displayed anger, disbelief, and fear. He tried to smile, to appear composed, but it did not work. The weight of his actions, finally exposed, pressed down on him like a storm. Zanab entered the office, holding her notebook close. Her witnesses, the girls who had suffered like she had, stood beside her. Each of them trembled slightly. But their presence was proof that the silence had ended. The principal spoke first. "Mr. Karim, we have received overwhelming evidence of your actions. The school can no longer protect you. You will face the authorities." Mr. Karim's voice shook. This is a mistake. You don't understand." Zanab stepped forward. "I understand perfectly. I have documented everything. You cannot hide behind lies anymore. You hurt us. You threatened us. And now, you will answer for it." The staff exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, a teacher who'd been silent for so long nodded. "It's time we stopped protecting the wrong person. The truth cannot be ignored." The school had no choice. Mr. Karim was removed from his position immediately. Authorities were called. For the first time, justice began to take shape. In the weeks that followed, more girls came forward. Each shared their story, their fear, their pain. Each voice strengthened the case against him. The authorities could no longer turn a blind eye. Mr. Karim faced investigation, consequences, and public disgrace. For Zanab, it was a mix of relief and exhaustion. Months of fear, shame, and silence had finally led to change. The school had been forced to confront its failures, to acknowledge that protecting reputation over students had been wrong. Back at home, Zanab showed her parents everything. The notebook, the names, the notes. Her father's face softened, tears filling his eyes. He embraced her tightly, whispering, "Your silence was not disobedience. It was courage. You protected yourself and others with bravery I did not understand before." Her mother cried too, but these were tears of pride and relief. They finally saw the strength of their daughter and the heavy burden she had carried alone. Zanab sat by the window that night, watching the moonlight reflect off the streets she had once walked in fear. The darkness that had haunted her was gone. Her body felt lighter, her mind clearer. She thought of the girls who had suffered in silence, the ones who had been too afraid to speak, and those who were still afraid. But now, a spark of hope had been lit. Zanab had shown that courage and truth could protect not only oneself, but everyone around you. She whispered softly to herself, "Fear may have controlled us. Shame may have silenced us. But courage can change everything." In the days that followed, the school implemented new policies. Staff were trained to recognize abuse. Students were encouraged to speak out. Support systems were created. The environment slowly began to heal. Zanab returned to her studies, not in that school, but somewhere new, somewhere safe, somewhere where her intelligence, her spirit, and her courage were valued. She had learned something powerful. Silence may feel safe, but speaking out carefully, bravely, with proof can be the strongest shield of all. Her parents watched her with pride. Neighbors began to see her as strong and brave, not as a source of shame. Zanab smiled quietly that night. She had faced her fear. She had protected others. She had changed the story forever. For the first time in months, she slept peacefully, knowing that justice had been served and that her courage had made the difference. And so, the story ended not in silence, not in shame, but in truth, justice, and empowerment. Because fear is heavy, but courage is stronger. Because silence protects the guilty, but speaking out protects the innocent. And because one brave voice can change everything.